Okay, hello everybody. We're going to talk about 10.8 today. Finish up chapter 10 since we've been talking about circles. We're going to talk about equations of circles here in 10.8. Alright, so to write the equation of a circle, you need two main things or pieces of information about the circle. You need the center point and you need the radius length. If you have those two things, you can write a full equation of the circle. Now, here is the most common generic form for the equation of a circle. And then we'll talk about what everything means in the equation. Okay, usually the generic form is written as x minus h, that quantity squared, plus y minus k, that quantity squared, is equal to r squared. Now, r obviously stands for the radius. H and k are your center point coordinates. Okay, the x-coordinate is this number for h, and the y-coordinate is this number for k. When you have the equation of the circle, it's like any normal equation. You're going to have your y variable, and you're going to have your x variable. These won't be variables. These will be numbers. So whatever your center point coordinates are, numbers go in here, and you'll have a number in for your radius. So you're only going to see y and x for the variables like most normal graphed equations. And then it looks a lot different than a normal equation because it graphs something totally different, a circle. It's not a parabola or a line or anything like that. Now, one thing to note about the center point, because the generic equation has subtraction signs, when you put the numbers into the equation, it's going to resemble the opposite symbol. For example, if the center point has a positive x of 3, when you put a 3 in here for h, it's going to look like a minus or negative 3. And let's say the y-coordinate is negative 2. When you put a negative 2 in for k, this minus sign and the negative are going to cancel, and it's really going to be a plus 2. So if you put a negative in for k, like a negative 2, it's going to be a plus 2. Okay, so make a little note here that when you put numbers in and out for h and k, your x and y coordinates from your center point, you're going to change the symbols or signs when you do that. Okay, if there's a minus 1, when you take it out, it's really a positive 1 in the center point. If there's a minus 5, when you take it out, it's really a positive 5 in the center point. Okay? So that's important right there. All right, let's go ahead and practice the first 3 problems. Here we have equations of circles, and we're going to simply give what the center point and the radius for each of them are. Now, one quick thing before we hit number 1. If you notice the generic equation form, this is an exponent squared form. So the radius, okay, you have to take whatever number is being squared. If it's a normal number, you want the square root of it. Okay, we'll talk more about it when we do the problems. All right, let's look at number 1. So number 1, here's our equation. You'll see it looks like the generic form. All right, so the center point is real easy. X-coordinate, y-coordinate. But remember to take the opposite sign, change the sign or symbol. So the x-coordinate center point is really a negative 5. Y-coordinate is really a positive 3. So that's your center point. And then the radius is whatever number is being squared to give you 16, or you can just simply take the square root of 16. Because think about it. This would have to be 4 squared, right? Now it looks like r squared, so r is 4. So the radius equals 4. Or just take the square root of 16. If it's a perfect square, it's that whole number for the radius. Okay? Let's look at number 2. Number 2, here's our equation. Okay, the center point, x-coordinate is positive 2. So our center point, positive 2, comma. Now look, there's no y plus or minus a number in parentheses like there was here. So what do you think that means for the y-coordinate? Right, it means it's a 0. So the center point is 2, 0. And look, sometimes you get the equations where it's already in r squared form. If it's like that, obviously r is 7. So the radius, 7. So center point, radius for number 2. Okay, number 3. Here you have x squared plus y squared equals 30. Okay, center point, 0, 0. That means it's centered at the origin. And now for the radius. Sometimes you get a whole number like you did here for 16, but it's not a perfect square. So again, you take the square root of it. So the radius is square root of 30. Now it doesn't specify exact or approximate. So if you want to leave it as square root of 30, fine, or you can approximate it. Sometimes a decimal makes more sense. And you get about 5.5 for the radius. Okay? So that is how you take the equation of a circle and easily get the center point and radius. All right, now let's practice writing a few of these. All right, so 4 and 5, we're going to write the equation of each circle. All right, so number 4. The center is at -6, -1. The radius is 1. Okay, so when we put the x and y coordinates in, remember the symbol or signs are going to change. So our equation is going to be x plus 6 squared. All right, add to that y plus 1 quantity squared. And this is always a plus sign in here for a circle. You're always adding the two x and y quantities. And that's equal to radius squared, but when you square 1, you get 1. All right, so it's more common. Don't write 1 squared, just write 1. Write whatever the square is. So that equals 1. And that would be the equation of a circle. Center here, radius of 1. All right, number 5. Radius square root of 5, center at 0, 6. Okay, so here's your x and y numbers in there, in those parentheses with the x and y variable. Now, you start off, if you put the 0 in, it's x minus 0 squared, but you want to simplify. You don't write this, so you just write x squared. And plus y, remember, this is going to change to a negative or minus 6 in here. Remember, positive 6 looks like a negative or minus 6 in here. Symbol or signs change. Now, you're going to square the radius, remember. Well, what happens when you square the square root of 5? Correct, you get 5. Because these cancel, they're inverse operations. So you just pop a 5 there. Okay? And there's the equation of the circle for number 5. All right, let's turn to the back. Sometimes you want the equation of a circle, but you're not given the information, you're given the actual graphed circle. Well, you need two things. You need the center and you need the radius. Well, we can easily tell what the center is. -1, 2, 3, and up 2. So the center point is -3, 2. And now for the radius, just count from the center to the edges of the circle. I would go horizontal, vertical. You don't want to count diagonal and have to figure that out. So either way you count, you can tell that the radius is 1, 2, 3, 4. Or you can go down 4, or left 4, or up 4. So either way you go, the radius is 4, either way. Now, just like we did in 5, or just like we did in 4 and 5, since we have the center and the radius, we can easily write the equation. So, x plus 3 squared, remember the symbol or sign changes, plus y minus 2 squared equals 4 squared, which is 16. And there's your equation for number 6. And one last problem, number 7. Here we're going to stick with graphing a little bit, and we're going to get the equation of the circle, and we're going to graph it on the coordinate plane. All right, again, in order to graph it, we need 2 things, the center and the radius, which it wants us to give anyway. All right, so the center easily is 0, positive 2. Remember to change the symbol. Minus 2 becomes a positive or plus 2. And that's just a 0 when there's no number in there. And remember, for the radius, you want the square root of this, which is a nice whole number 5. So we've given the center and radius. Now we're going to graph this equation. It's easy to do once you know this. So put your center point first. So 0, 2 is right here. And then you just want to kind of put your 4 points, like go out each way 5, because that's your radius. So if you count this way 5, put a point, go down 5 for that radius. Now, don't connect these too narrow, or don't squeeze in too much, or it's going to look like a rhombus or square or diamond. Go ahead and go out nice and wide, so you have a circle, and there you go. Graph the circle, that equation. All right, guys, that is 10.8. Have a good rest of your day and week, and a good weekend, and I'll talk to you next week for next week assignments. Bye-bye.